always, 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 always have emergency numbers up, clearly visible, typically by a phone or, right as you walk in case something happens. That gives people an immediate connection that, hey, I can get a hold of somebody, to fix something if it's urgent, or, if I get hurt, something like that. Happy customers, obviously, safer laundromat.
Welcome to the Planet Laundry Podcast, brought to you by Planet Laundry, the magazine of the Coin Laundry Association. This edition of the Planet Laundry Podcast has been made possible by sponsorship from Speed Queen, the proven performer in laundry. Laundromat owners, are you tired of utility bills draining your revenue? Put an end to high costs with equipment that conserves water and uses less energy. Speed Queen washer extractors can save over $1,000 per year per machine. Picture the savings. To change your utilities routine, visit Speed Queen at go.speedqueencommercial.com/change. This is the Planet Laundry Podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Planet Laundry Magazine, Bob Nieman. Today I'm with Matt Gabris. For nearly 30 years, Matt has served as a chief safety and environmental executive for 4 major food and beverage companies. He also currently serves as the industry safety chair for the American Bakers Association. In addition, he and his wife Jennifer are the longtime owners of The Wash Basket, which is a laundromat based in Central Lake, Michigan. Just recently, Matt became a commercial laundry equipment distributor. Hey, Matt, thanks for being here today. You're certainly a busy guy.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to talk to our folks. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, with your professional background, you have got to have the safest laundromat in America, right?
Well, knock on wood, we have not had an employee or customer injury in the 10 years that we've owned it. So it's prevention is worth a pound of it's the cliche. I mean, prevention is worth weight in gold. So that's what this is all about.
Right. Obviously, that was a little hyperbole there, but you've certainly got to be as well versed as anyone in this industry as to the rules and regulations of OSHA, the Department of Labor, and so on as they pertain to business operations. Given that, in what ways do those government bodies impact laundromat owners and their operations? I mean, perhaps even in ways that some owners may not be completely aware of.
Yeah, great question. So just, some good news, bad news, mostly good news. Good news is, OSHA is, I'm sure we all have different opinions on governmental agencies, but OSHA was formulated, put together in 1972 to protect the worker, the U.S. worker. That worker can be anywhere from a farm worker to a manufacturing worker to a graphic designer to a coin laundry exec, all of us that hold a job that work for somebody, even if we work for ourselves, ironically. Most of OSHA's focus is on companies that employ 10 people or more. Now, I say that with a strong caveat that if a company, a small company, has fewer than, but has a serious injury or an employee has a complaint, they can trigger, OSHA's rules and regulations, inspection, and the whole gamut of things very quickly and very efficiently. There's an 800 number easily locatable on the web. Just type in OSHA 1-800 number that employees can call. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we'll talk a little bit about that in the podcast on how you can be proactive and actually use that as a positive for your business, not only for employees, but also for customers. So we'll get into that. So I think that's, so they're applicable as I guess is what I'm saying. And
right.
We have, some basic things we'll go over today that you can easily comply.
Clearly, record keeping is important. What are the key record keeping, requirements for a typical laundromat business?
Yeah, there's really 2. I'm kind of I like to think I'm a student of common sense. I mean, I could go on for minutes and tens of minutes on, regulations and what you should do. And there's all these things could be caught on. There's really basically 2. One is you need to have an OSHA poster. They're free. It's a PDF on the OSHA website, Department of Labor, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. You have to post that. And what it does is if you employ people, the OSHA poster has to be clearly visible in an area where those employees work. A break room, the front office where you get wash, dry, folds, where your employees wash out the mop buckets, if that's a common area, just somewhere easily visible that they go. It basically says what their rights are and that they have the right to call OSHA if there are employee workplace infractions. So that poster has to be clearly visible. The other one is OSHA record keeping, or what we call the OSHA 300 logs. And there's a kind of a series or a tier of them. There's 300 days that you have to record any injury that reaches medical care past a certain level. But again, the 10 employee rule is definitely, a trigger for that, but it's a good idea. It doesn't cost anything to print out the OSHA logs. They're fairly self-explanatory. How many hours did you work during the year? And you can estimate, it's, my one attendant, in my case, my one attendant works about 25 hours on average per week during our off season. We're kind of a recreational area, 50 weeks a year, put those hours up there, and then number of injuries you've had, and then 0 times however many hours is still 0. If you've had one injury, you have to put, one injury, and then you have to sign it as an owner and keep it. You don't have to send it in. You just have to keep it. So if you're inspected, you have to have records of those. And generally, if OSHA is really going to inspect you, they're going to ask for at least the last 3 years of those OSHA logs. So if you have a workplace that has injuries, and again, these are not customer injuries, God forbid that falls into a completely different category called compensability. But if you have employee injuries, and those injuries can be anywhere from a serious back strain, if you have wash, dry, fold business or commercial laundry or laundromat where there's a repetitive motion and the employee goes to a clinic or a doctor and says, man, my back hurts, and they put them on restriction, or if they give them prescription meds, or if they assign physical therapy, any of those things trigger what's called a recordable injury. It has to go on the log. So, so OSHA record keeping and the poster. Those are the two main ones for, OSHA record keeping.
Well, that seems fairly straightforward. Are those requirements typically followed, or do you see a lot of businesses overlooking?
No, so not being new to the laundromat business, but obviously being associated with the Coin Laundry Association for 10 years plus, and then recently getting in the commercial laundry equipment sales. I get to go set foot and rubber meets the road kind of thing into a lot of laundromats. Most laundromat owners don't know. I would hate to say don't care. I don't think that's the case, but probably just don't know, and they don't do this. Looking up on the OSHA website, good thing laundromats are not high hazard industries, which means generally a recordable rate of 5% or more of the workforce is injured every year. That typically constitutes a high hazard injury rate. Laundromats don't fall in that, especially if you keep them safe with some things we're going to go over. You should consistently be at 0. But yeah, they're not followed. I do see some of the OSHA posters up. Those are good. But when I ask them about OSHA logs, I kind of get the deer in the headlights look. So hopefully you and your other laundromat counterparts will view this podcast and understand what that is. And
absolutely.
At the end of the podcast, I will give some contact information. So if you have additional questions, you can email me. And,
that'd be great.
If you want some more, we can go on from there.
What are some of the most cited OSHA violations that you see, I guess, with regard to a laundry business or a laundry type operation? What are the most common?
Yeah. So actually, I it's one of those common sense ain't so common things. So I would have picked some just because of what I've seen in laundromats, but I actually looked it up. I'm just as smart as the internet, right? But actually a few things here. So there's actually 4. One of them is doors on big machines. So large washers, typically washers, not dryers. And these are typically for more of the commercial operations, but those doors have to have a means of staying open. So somebody can't, go inside as common sense as it is. I've actually in my laundromat, I've had 5'10", 16-year-old try to fit himself into a large truck. Who knows? anyway, whatever. To keep those doors open while they're being loaded. If you get into the 60, certainly the 80, certainly the 100-pound, washers, certainly you can fit people in there if you try. And if you have a medical event and you fall into, I guess there's some hazard there. Now those like dryers, obviously they have gas going to them, so there's a hazard, but those have to be open. And I guess kind of on that same side, also, especially your dryers, I have seen quite a few. I've had some that the door switch fails, and if you open it up, it still rotates. That's a no-no from an OSHA standpoint. That's a moving hazard. So fix those. Once the door opens on all your washers, whether they're vintage 1974 or whether they're brand new ones, they all should stop. That's one thing that OSHA looks at is things like rotating shafts and moving equipment if somebody can be hurt. On that, I guess other thing is guarding. So anywhere in your laundromat, including behind your dryer banks, all moving parts like gear wheels and things like that, those should all be guarded. Now, I've seen a lot of laundromats that, why even put them there? It's just easier access. Take that dang steel guard off, and then I can get and change the belt real easy. Common sense ain't so common. I'll use that a lot. Your employees are back there. They're assigned to, clean out the lints every so often, and they get a phone call and they, reach over, or their sleeve, they got a loose sleeve. They can get caught up in that and they can get injured. So those kind of rotating shafts and rotating wheels do need to have a guard with them. And certainly all of the major manufacturers, certainly in the U.S., will ship that guard with the equipment. They're well aware of the OSHA Department of Labor regulations that those. And if you have some old equipment, it's pretty easily fabbable. It's just sheet metal. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be functional. The other thing, the other two violations I looked up, steam pipes. Actually, steam pipes need to be, if they're 7 feet or above from the floor, they're fine. But if they're not, they need to be insulated or covered so somebody can't bump against them and get burned. And then my favorite, which is actually from a manufacturing industry standpoint, the most cited OSHA violation is called HAZCOM, and it's awareness and training about chemicals. So if you use strong detergents or bleach or really any chemical that has a hazard to it, and all chemicals have a hazard, whether you believe it or not, you have to have a safety data sheet, and you have to train your employees on what to do if they get exposed to it. When I say exposed, that means they get it splashed in their eyes, they get it on their skin. Generally, if you have a large number of chemicals, call it 3 or 4 or 5 gallon buckets or more in an area where it's being poured into smaller containers or being fed by pumps or things like that, you want to have a safety shower or an eye wash there. So, the rule of thumb on that is if somebody gets splashed, there should be a means to wash it off within 10 seconds unobstructed. So you can't have a safety shower around 2 corners and, a vending machine is in the way. That's a no-no. It has to be clear line of path, 10 seconds, and it has to be active, like more or less a push button paddle to, activate the eye wash. You can buy the plastic ones with saline solution in it for about $100. You can hard pipe one for about $600. I know I'm going to get, probably say, oh, I can't do that. I've got a union environment or something like that, but it's well worth it. One potential injury will triple, quadruple pay for itself in something like that. So, it also shows, one thing I'll talk about is that you care about employees, whether you do or not, and I hope you do. The more you show you care to your employees and your customers, the more you will have a safer laundromat.
Great information. Hey, Matt. Too often we hear about dryer fires and spontaneous combustion and things like that. And what are some best practices that you found regarding fire safety and fire prevention? Again, specifically in the laundromat setting.
Yeah, so not to digress, but in my career in the food industry, I got to tour the Imperial Sugar Plant in Savannah, Georgia. And in 2008, they had a combustible dust fire and explosion that killed 14 people. huge, catastrophic. Again, not a laundromat. Okay, so I'm going to land this plane and bring it back to how it applies to a laundromat. Their main defense on, afterwards was housekeeping. They said, what caused the dryer fire was we didn't have very good housekeeping. We had, you wouldn't think of sugar as an explosive, but it really is. I mean, it's really a carbon-based energy source. I mean, think of it from humans. It's calories. Well, those calories can be burnt. Those can be digested. Those could be, anyway, it's combustible. And it caused a big explosion. So same thing with lint. Lint and dryers, it's certainly not digestible, right? I don't think it is. But it is combustible. And if you ever, touched a spark or a match to it, it goes up pretty quick. That is one thing in my laundromat. And when I get into these conversations with laundromat owners, I am absolutely, kind of martial law with this. I have a written maintenance and cleaning schedule for my laundromat, part of which I'm responsible for, part of which my attendant is for. But every third day, I make sure my lid filters are cleaned, whether they need it or not. We have a slow season and a busy season. Doesn't matter. Every 3 days. And the importance of that is to establish a cadence. And a cadence is just a regular schedule that, in marketing terms, you need to hear something 6 times to really absorb it. My wife says it's probably 9 or 10 times for me, but, cadence, and you say lint filter cleaning is absolutely essential. It is. And that will 95 times out of 100 probably save you from a fire. The other, a couple other things too, and I'll mention this again and again. In the safety business, we say culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay, so you go, what the hell is Matt talking about, right? Well, culture is really creating a, kind of a genre or an aura in your laundromat where it's someplace that people want to come. Doing laundry for some is not the most exciting thing or most coolest thing to do. But the more you can make it a good experience, the more, it's one of those, it's the cliche, you don't always remember what people said, but you remember how they made you feel. So if you walk into a laundromat, it's well lighted, it's clean, and people are friendly, including the owners, you're going to remember that. And you know what? You'll probably go to that one time and time again. If you go to one that's not, and you go to one that is, you'll go to the one that is, even if it's a quarter more or 50 cents more, or, kind of goes up and up and up. I've had that comments a lot with my laundromat. That's one thing I focus on a lot. I will go out of my way when I'm in there doing a repair or doing my regular checklist. If there's some people in there, it's free pop day. You get a pop, or I'm going to put an extra quarter in the dryer for you, or just chat with them for a few minutes, see how they're doing, that kind of thing. That stuff seems very mundane, but immensely important. I've heard the flip side of owners going in there and going, I just raised the prices on people. They don't even notice. Where, boy, I got that customer, they were saying they lost some money in the dryer. And, I told them, well, that's not the way to run a laundromat. You'll know your problem children, if you will, the ones that are complaining, but most of them are going to be cooperative. Most of them are going to be appreciative that you're reaching out to them. And when it comes to fire safety, I know I took that route a little ways, but customers will also tell you something's smoking. I had a customer put in a hard case suitcase in one of my washers one time, top load wash. And the thing just smoked to all beat all hell. I mean, these washers are built like Sherman tanks. Of course, they just keep running, but burned the belt up, caused a bunch of smoke. Customer called the department. They came down. I mean, I wasn't anywhere to be seen. Called them. They got their problem resolved. And with that, I would say also, if you don't, I know this is a landline thing, but have a phone on the wall. I pay $19.99 a month for it, and it's, kind of unlimited. It used to be, oh my God, somebody's going to call long distance. That's not the case anymore. Have a phone on the wall, have your emergency numbers there. So there's always a means of communication to the fire department, to your attendant, God forbid, to the owner if something really goes wrong. That phone has saved me thousands and thousands of dollars in damages. I've had, my bulkhead trough overflow before, and water gets all over the laundromat. And if I would have let it sit for a couple hours, I may have had a slip and fall. I may have had it ran into an electrical box or something like that. I get a call within 5 minutes. Hey, a customer picks up the phone. Hey, Matt, it's going bad down here. And of course, that's usually on Christmas Eve or when I'm trying to take my wife out for dinner or whatever, not to be cynical, but, having that there. So circling back around, regular cleaning is good. It's the communication method. Also, good signage. Always have fire extinguishers up. Have the red fire extinguisher with the arrow. Like here they are. Brutally honest. It's kind of the red pictograms, arrows. Speak all languages. If you have multiple languages spoken in your laundromat, that kind of thing. So those are a few of the tips, I think.
Yeah, that's great advice, Matt. And I guess kind of along the same lines, maybe take me through a typical laundromat. What are the main areas that owners should be concerned with? What should they be looking at? What should they be looking for as they attempt to safeguard their businesses completely, not just fire?
Yeah, good question. Good, solid question, actually. So two things I when I inspect food plants, which I still do, or a laundromat, two things I look at immediately is housekeeping and lighting. Absolutely essential. If the place is trashed, there's, trash cans overflowing, water on the floor, or somebody spilled a pop and it's on the floor, it's not attended. That just shows the owner doesn't overly care. It could be, hey, they're just not there in that 15-minute window, but for the most part, see it once, okay, see it twice, see it 3 times, no, you got a problem. So housekeeping and then lighting. I cannot emphasize enough how important lighting is. Lighting does a whole lot of things. So if you walk into a bright laundromat, generally people, unless they're vampires, like bright things. So it's, they can see where they're going. They can read the sign on the washer. They can, they can do their crossword puzzle or whatever they're going to do. They like well-lighted areas. And it also, well-lighted areas are typically safer areas. So if you have, dark corners or dark areas outside your laundromat, those are places where, bad people can hide or, perceived to be hidden or stuff like that. But it also, well-lighted laundromat, also you can see things that are on the floor, like a dryer sheet or a puddle of water or, something you can slip, trip, and fall on, those things. So housekeeping, lighting, trying to do the 6 times, so you get it. Appropriate signage is good. One thing I will say, I know I will have some disagreement out there, but the signs you have out there of don't do this, no, don't, I know as a laundromat, you're tempted, I've had some shenanigans go on in mine and you're tempted to just, proverbially beat the living words out of somebody, but, trying to keep it positive, try to keep it, I have an attendant that we have a kids corner. And, as kids do, they mess the place up. Well, instead of saying, don't let your kids, leave a mess, say, hey, please clean up after yourself so, you can enjoy this and the next kids can enjoy it. So try to always make it positive, things like that. If the toilet paper's gone to the bathroom, please report it to the attendant. It's not, don't use the last toilet paper. I'm being a little facetious, but be positive. But when it comes to safety, certainly the same things. Always have emergency numbers up, clearly visible, typically by a phone or, right as you walk in case something happens. That gives people an immediate connection that, hey, I can get a hold of somebody, to fix something if it's urgent or, if I get hurt, something like that. Happy customers, obviously, safer laundromat. I would say also if you use chemicals, which are used in laundromats, obviously detergent, soaps, things like that, bleaches, have some signage around for that. Have for your employees, the safety data sheet station. It can be a 3-ring binder, typically yellow or red, from a safety standpoint, have that visible, so they can look up, and not that most of them are going to do this, but look up the hazards of a chemical. But if somebody, the reason for that OSHA standard is if somebody does get exposed, somebody gets bleach in their eye, and it's bad enough where they either didn't wash it out because you don't have an eye wash, or they just washed it out a little bit and it's still burning. In order for the hospital or the clinic to treat a chemical injury, they have to have a safety data sheet. They have to know what they're dealing with. They can get themselves in a lot of trouble if they say, oh, I'll just wash it out with water, and maybe it's something that shouldn't be washed out with water. It should be flushed with something else. So that's why they need those safety data sheets, and you need to place on where they are. So I'm sorry, going back to your question, typical laundromats. What was the question again, Bob?
Yeah, it was just what areas should owners be concerned with? What should they be looking for? What should they be looking at as they try to safeguard their stores?
Yeah, and again, kind of going back to, I think it was question 2 with anything that's exposed and moving. Just I'm consistently amazed when I'm in the food industry and going into a manufacturing plant, going, somebody's not going to reach in there. It's a moving part, and to grab a piece of food or dough or whatever, they're not going to reach in. Oh, they do. They do. So, if you've got some equipment that you're working on or your maintenance guy is working on, and they leave the trace open on a dryer or a washer, and they decide to go to lunch, no, mark it off, cover it back up, make sure moving parts are guarded. So little kids or, curious or, and I won't use any other words, people, won't reach into those things, electrical boxes, make sure your electrical breaker box is locked. That's never a good thing to have open, just from a kind of a vandalism and continuity of business too. So it was a little bit kind of roundabout.
No, that's good stuff. That's really good advice. I mean, of course, despite the best of intentions, accidents do happen. What are the critical steps owners need to take if an incident occurs? Let's say a customer or an employee gets injured. I mean, what next?
Yeah. So first of all, and I may shock you on this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. So get your head in the mind space that all accidents are preventable. Whether you believe it or not, all accidents are preventable. They'll go, oh my God, well, I can't do that because that's just going to cost way too much money. Or, oh my God, there's just no way I can prevent everybody from, not slipping on the ice out front or injuring their finger or whatever. All accidents are preventable. I can, be happy to email you and spend a few minutes on that if you want, but we won't. Just get in that mind space.
Right.
Even if you don't believe it, if you get in that mind space, you will think better on prevention. And that's the whole point of this podcast. That's the whole point of running this business, of looking at things in a, it's kind of like the Wayne Gretzky quote, a great hockey player doesn't play where the puck is. He plays where the puck is going to be. That's what you do with your laundromat. You want to play where the unsafe hazard or behavior is going to be. That's the first thing. So, but if you do have an injury, always remember the word care. Okay, I'm going to make it really simple for you. One word, care. Always throw everything at it. Shotgun approach it. Don't just kind of surgically go, well, I'm not sure who that employee is or if they really got injured. Or first and foremost, that first few minutes is critical. Make sure your attendants, your employees know this. They practice and preach it. You can even, make a fun game out of it and have a drill. Somebody goes down, fall. What are we going to do? Just show them care. Just go over there. Somebody slips and falls in your laundromat. Go over there. Say, are you all right? Can we get you anything? Can I call somebody? Do you want us to call an ambulance? Do you want us to get you, just shower them with attention. I can tell you stories in manufacturing where a supervisor or manager or whatever automatically puts on the hat that, they're just faking it, heck with it. They're just, they're out for the buck, or, they're just trying to get out of their work or get a break early. Don't do that. Period. Don't do that. It's afterwards you can question, was it legitimate or not? Was there some bad intention? Was there, did we overdo it? Just do that first. So, but I think some basic things you can have are, number one, have a first aid kit. So if somebody has there's some data, some science out there. There's actually some pretty well written papers on, serious injury. If you have a serious injury, there's probably going to be about 300 to 400 not so serious near misses up to that point where, if somebody gets a finger chopped off in the back of on a dryer wheel in the back of your, dryer bank, there's probably a whole lot of incidents that happen back there that somebody nudged up against it, but didn't quite get it, get hurt, or somebody bumped against it and got a little owie. Those are the kind of things you want to know about. You want to, again, talking to customers, talking to employees, get to know them, get to say, hey, anything, when I walk into my laundromat, unless I'm really in a bad mood, which is not very often, I'll say, hey, how are things going? Everything work okay? You doing all right? It seems very casual, very, non-committal, but there's a reason for that. I have some people that say, yep, good. And other ones, you can't shut them up. But, we'll say, hey, since you broke the ice, I just want to tell you, somebody spilled something over in the corner over there. And, I, didn't know really where stuff was to clean it up, but I got it. And actually, that's another thing too. I brought this up on our last webinar. I know this is a podcast, but one thing to do is make sure you have a broom and a dustpan on a hook in your laundromat. When we first did that practice, we had probably owned our laundromat for 3 years before we went, hey, we should put that up there, because customers were saying, hey, if you put a broom out, we'll sweep up for you. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, we got, an hour and a half here, we're bored, or we care about the laundromat. Put it up there. And, the biggest risk is, oh my God, I lost that $8 because somebody stole the broom. Whoop-de-doo, right? I think I bought 2 brooms in 10 years or in, 7 years. One of them because I broke it. Don't ask me how. It's good to have that up so people can. You see a little spill, they did something, they just sweep it up, take care of it. If you don't have that there, they're probably not going to sweep it up because they can't. So I have that stuff available. Again, when an injury happens, just show the employee you care. You don't have to be state trained or anything like that. It's great if you are. One thing I would say recommend or offer up is if you have, it doesn't even need to be a big laundromat, but having an AED on site is a good idea. The price has come way down. You can actually lease them from companies like Aramark and Cintas, and I'm sure there's other ones out there that they'll take care of them. They're under $1,000 a year to do it, and you can buy them for I think $100. Speaking from personal experience of a person who's had a heart attack, all you need to do is save one life, and you've exponentially paid for it. And to have that up on a wall also shows your customers, well, your employees, you care, and this is a safe place to be. It's just one more reassurance of this is why you come in my laundromat. I don't know if you want to put it on your sales brochure or what, but it's, when you do it in your pictures on your social media, put it there. You can kind of, you can make some good fun out of that. So yeah, I think that answered your question, Bob, hopefully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was great information and some really good tips there. What are some common mistakes, safety mistakes, maybe overlooked safety measures that you run across? Because again, you're in laundries all the time, you're in baking plants, in and out of those places. So what are some mistakes or maybe just things that get overlooked?
Well, laundromats are typically smaller than the manufacturing plants I'm in, but the same things apply. The same human behaviors happen. In no particular order, I would say a few things. So, again, I'm going to harp on housekeeping and lighting. Housekeeping and lighting will absolutely pay for themselves. If you haven't upgraded your lighting in 10, 15 years, you have fluorescent bulbs, you have, a third of them that are out, upgrade them. You'll save it on energy savings and your customers will be happy. So first and foremost, that's like giving you all, a holiday gift right there. Upgrade your lighting. Housekeeping is just do not pass go, do not collect $200. Make sure your laundromat's clean. Takes out the hazard of things on the floor for people to slip and trip on. If you've got, you got equipment, or I've seen pallets and low boxes in laundromats, and it's just randomly there. I don't know why. Just make sure your walkways are clear. Things are clean. Be aware of things like, if you do have attendants that do wash, dry, fold business, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the I don't want to call it a cliche because it's real, but aging workforce and repetitive motion go hand in hand. I have an attendant who's a senior citizen. I would trade her for the world. She's fantastic. She can run circles around me, but she has pretty regular aches and pains. And if she does a lot of wash, dry, fold, especially, small items, she says, Matt, my wrists get kind of crampy and kind of tired. So I tell her, I said, take breaks, the easy free things you can do, take breaks, do a little stretching. You can have some ice packs in the refrigerator, a little freezer that you have, things like that. Don't overdo it. It's not a it's not a sprint. It's a more of a marathon kind of thing. And that is actually, I haven't really talked about workers' compensation and compensability, but if you do have injuries with employees, the typical injury in food manufacturing will cost about $14,000. There's a lot of them that are $100, but there's a few that, six figures, an injury, and that's direct cost. So, whether you've got good insurance or not, it's going to come out of your pocket somehow. So you want to avoid those injuries, not only from a standpoint of, keeping employees, because God forbid, we've all seen it now. This labor crisis we have is crazy. Never seen it before in my life. That finding good is gold. So you want to keep your employees, you want to keep them safe, you want to keep them happy. Putting up emergency numbers, or call it emergency numbers, call it contact numbers. If somebody wants to, somebody has a suggestion or a complaint, somebody to call. If you do social media, which probably 60% of my laundromats that I service do some social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google, that kind of thing. I know there's certainly opportunity for people to complain or compliment, the likes and things like that. So having things like contact numbers are a means to vet, what they see as good or bad is healthy. And treat every complaint seriously, or complaint or suggestion seriously. And, try to respond, whether they're a curmudgeon or whether they're your happiest customers, make sure you respond to those things that if it falls into the abyss, then again, going back to that care value, it shows you don't care, but it's pretty easy to back a couple sentences and just to make sure that they're acknowledged. And I'm not going to apologize, but I'm going to recognize it that I keep bringing up this care thing and this, it seems like unicorns and rainbows, but think about it as a business owner or as a customer. You walk into a store, you walk into a store that feels cold and sterile and impersonal. Are you going to keep going to that? Well, you might, but it may not be your favorite. But if you go someplace where, kind of like Cheers, everybody knows your name and you feel comfortable with it, you're going to go back. Even if your prices aren't the cheapest in town, you're going to go back because you feel safe, you feel welcome, feel like you know where things are, and it's a good place to be. So.
Right. It absolutely changes, everyone's whole vibe and their feeling about the business. And like you say, they kind of take ownership of it, and maybe they'll sweep up for themselves and things like that. So absolutely, I would agree that would go a very long way.
Yeah, and it's contagious. I've had it's kind of funny. I have had a little bit of vandalism on some game machines I've had, but for the most part, for every vandalism event, I probably had 10 good events. Like I have an attendant that we have a cup. It's more like a bowl of quarters for, this is before I put it in my swipe card system, but we still have it. Anyway, he left this bucket of quarters out on top of a washing machine, probably $50 worth of quarters. Well, we get this customer that calls and says, "Hey, Matt, somebody left all these quarters here. What do we do with them?" I'm like, oh, well, hey, thanks. We told them where to put them. Usually that'd be no phone call. You're out $50 because, that employee felt like, hey, this is my hometown laundromat. I'm familiar with the people there. I know them. They felt inclined to call. Now I know there's probably quite a few of you laughing, going, "Oh, that'd be gone in 2 seconds in my laundromat." Well, think about that. Kind of like going back to every accident is preventable. See if you can do something about it. Raise your up your game a little bit on employee customer engagement there. So pays dividends. I guarantee it.
Yeah, no, great anecdote. Absolutely, that absolutely applies. What's the safety program like at the Wash Basket? You've shared a ton of advice and tips, but do you have any additional maybe safety hacks from the Safety Pro that you guys follow?
Yeah, kind of like voting in Chicago, early and often. Right? So, communication. So we try to, again, with our certainly our employees, just have regular communication. Obviously, they feel very comfortable texting me, calling me, anything like that. I make it a good place for them to work. Hours are somewhat flexible. Obviously, we know when our customers come in and we're kind of dictated by that. My attendants can also occasionally, she can bring her grandchildren and, give them their little plastic toolkit. They like to do maintenance on our stuff, or, we have the kids corner, things like that. Again, the more welcoming your laundromat, the safer it's going to be. Lint filters, lint filters, lint filters, lint filters. If you ask my attendant, what is Matt always harp on me? Lint filters. I know that is my biggest hazard from a fire standpoint. I don't do, the chemicals I use are the 1 gallon jugs or 1.5 gallon jugs. They're not big ones, but we do have safety data sheets on them. And I have talked to my attendants. I have full time as well as some part times, and they're well aware of what they need to do if they, if it's mainly bleach. We don't use the strong caustics like some of the commercial, like hotels and hospitals and stuff like that. But bleach is a caustic. It's a high pH, which is actually worse than an acid because it stays on your skin. And I'm getting a little crazy here, but defats your skin and it's harder to wash off than acid is. It's use a lot of water on it, and the chlorine can really burn too. So don't ever mix chemicals. Mix the laundry chemicals. Softener and detergent are fine, but other than that, don't get crazy. What else from a safety standpoint? I just think clear visibility. Don't assume everybody can read. I know that seems kind of scary, but we've got English as a second language for quite a few folks that come in, especially seasonally to ours, and we have very colorful pictogram signs where the fire extinguisher is, where the bathroom is, and we have the big signs. If we're mopping up a floor, we always use the yellow sign, the floor sign. So it's very visible that that's a slippery area. So yeah, I think that's it. This doesn't need to be hard. I know we're 44 minutes into this right now, and I've talked about a lot of stuff. Don't let it overwhelm you. Do the next right thing, I guess, is kind of it. If you have questions, I will give you my email. And I think Bob probably post this. It's mjgabris@outlook.com. Happy to email me. I can answer some questions fairly quickly usually. If you do want a virtual audit or assessment of your laundromat, I will offer it up. I can, for $100, I'll give you an hour and you can take me around your laundromat virtually. If the $100 is a problem, we can work something out, but I'm happy to do it. It's you're probably further along than you think you are. Some of the things I said with just keeping employees happy, signage, fires being an issue. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, though, is workplace violence. I have actually trained my employees. They used to handle a fair amount of cash. They still do a little bit, and in some venues that's dangerous when you handle cash because it's a target on your head. I tell all my employees, if you're ever robbed, whether it's gunpoint, knife point, or just somebody says, "Give me all your money," give it to them. I said, give it to them. That's replaceable. I don't care about it. Between insurance and security cameras and just the flat out, I don't care. As long as you are safe, it goes a long way. So don't ever, what's the saying? Lean over dollars to pick up dimes when you think you're gonna, tell your employees, fight them, or here's the panic button. No, just give it up. Be right. There's bigger problems out there. That is not one that we should, fuel the fire with. Employee and customer violence, employee violence. That's another thing too. We have run into, it's usually spouses or, people who have a relationship. They get into arguments in our laundromat. Mm-hmm. For the most part, keep backed away. We're certainly not social workers or anything like that. But if it gets violent, I said, don't be hesitant to call 911. Don't try to interject and be a counselor. Call 911. Call the professionals. Get them in there. Don't be hesitant. And if there's a fire, know that a fire extinguisher is designed to put out a fire trash can size or smaller. If the whole dryer panel's on fire, get the hell out of the building and call 911. Don't be a hero. That's what we have insurance. That's what we have insurance for. Right. That's why we clean our lip filters. So don't be heroes on that.
Hey, that's all great, common sense advice, even, the violence in the workplace, that all falls along the line of safety and staying safe and keeping your staff safe, customers safe, and caring about, your community. So that's all great advice. Hey, last one for you, Matt, and I appreciate you taking time today to be on the podcast. But what's the key takeaway that you'd like all laundromat owners who are listening to this to remember from this podcast? What's the one takeaway?
Every accident's preventable.
Perfect. All right. Let's leave it right there. And Matt, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I've learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on our podcast today. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to Planet Laundry at PlanetLaundry.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.